Hello, MJ friends. We're going to look at a whole bunch of stuff. So ACB stealing the show today. Let's do that first. So ACB, look at the dollar volume. Highest dollar volume on the US side of things ever, or I should say highest share count ever, was recently, and it was 73 million. And today we blow that out of the water and almost double it. We could see pre-market, yet again, something is up. If you've been watching these videos, you recall, I believe it was March 5th, but sometime in the recent past, we saw volume pre-market was clearly setting up to be huge. And in that instance, back then, it was 1.5 million of ACB shares traded compared to 5 figures of CGC. This morning, it was the exact same thing, but bigger. And so we knew it was going to be a high activity day on ACB. We knew we were going to get some solid follow through. And it was because pre-market, we had almost a third of yesterday's entire volume as we headed into the open. And we surpassed the total of yesterday's volume very quickly. So we knew a big volume day was coming. The gap up held and we got follow through. In my opinion, I just am having a really hard time believing that this is based off of the news of the activist investor getting involved. In my opinion, this dollar volume is way more than that. CNBC is now talking about ACB. Cramer's now talking about ACB. So in that regard, the news is doing its rounds and getting attention. But highest share count traded on all U.S. markets and just massive, massive dollar volume has us scratching our heads and wondering what is going on with ACB and is there a deal coming in the near-term future? It's almost like we've seen a shift of I was just doing a live stream for members and I called them the darling of the MJ sectors. Kron was the darling of the MJ sector, big money, because big money can get in and move liquid in and out quickly. And we saw this run January through February, huge gains, big money, banking. And now we're seeing a shift to ACB being the darling with huge money, big gains, and a weekly trend change. And now we're looking back up at the all-time high of 1253 as the next clear weekly resistance level. That's still a ways away, but with some kind of deal news, we're going to be knocking on the door of that level, blue sky breakout potential, if there's a deal. If you didn't tell me the news this morning and you showed me this daily chart and you said, what happened on ACB? My answer would be, they got some kind of deal. And that was just because specifically what the volume is showing us. So a nice strong close. We're down a little bit, 0.5% or so after hours. Didn't close at the high of the day. We have to watch out for this scenario where we have a big volume day, a big bull break, and we then consolidate. And we had a higher open, but an inability to break the high of the day. So that was a red flag to be watching for, or that will be a red flag to be watching for if we can't break 925 first thing tomorrow morning. Another red flag is what we saw just last week when we were very overextended on the hourly chart. And we started the next morning with a strong, quick bull push up and then a complete turnaround into multiple days of consolidation. So there is a potential here if we do not break 925 to watch for an hourly equilibrium and a daily inside bar tomorrow. So did end up trading ACB a bit pre-market, trading ACB with a little bit of a swing position into tomorrow. And I personally will be quick to exit if 925 does not break in the morning. Congrats to the bulls of ACB getting a lot of attention today with that dollar volume. CGC, it was the kind of scenario today with the market where S&P 500 still all bulls, astoundingly, third gap up in a row on SPY, but it was almost like the consolidation signals started at the end of the day yesterday, and the ACB news kind of fended that off a little bit this morning. So the bulls started this morning with some follow through. You can see CGC closed at 46.76, and we opened a solid 70 cents, 1.5% higher than that. And it was almost like the ACB bullish action delayed that consolidation and tightening ranges we were seeing on the vast majority of these names. And then by the second half of the day, it went back to, consolidation as planned, so to speak, in terms of what we saw beginning to unfold yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon. So this morning, the ACB news delayed consolidation a little bit, but we ended up pulling back and we see Kron in the red, CGC in the red, and CGC had a double top with the high of yesterday. We broke it by 3 pennies, but then pulled back and we're staying in this tightening pattern, and now we're looking for a higher low compared to 43.71. And where the hourly RSI currently sits, if we were to drop down towards that level in the next 2 days, we would be looking for an hourly oversold bounce and a play off of 43.71 support to potentially maintain within this tightening pattern into next week. So it's going to be key to watch the hourly RSI as we approach 43.71 support. Cron's still weak on this bounce attempt. It does look like a little potential bear flag. Size of the pullback compared to size of the bounce. Support is 21 psychological and then 2053. If we break 2053, it's going to be a clear shift in momentum. It's already a bit choppy on this daily time frame, but we'll be watching if we break 2053, the odds of a bear cross of the 12 and 26 period on the daily time frame will be likely. And look at the crosses in the past. Bull cross led to big upside. Bear cross led to weeks of consolidation, and then bull cross led to this insane run on Cron. So a bear cross would be notable, and we'd be looking down at 1950. And again, I'm watching the narrative of the potential of funds leaving Cron and trying to go to other runners like ACB, which obviously held up much better. APHA also looking like it may be topping out for the lower high. We got a daily inside bar essentially. So 952 and 915 are our supports, and clear resistance is 986 and 982. Almost the same range as yesterday. So if this is our lower high and we drop down and break 915, that's the clear indication that the weekly equilibrium is tightening up, and that's what we'll be watching into, what month is it? Into April. That's what we'll be watching if we break to a lower low on the daily. TLRY, also looking like a daily lower high may be set. We couldn't break the high of yesterday, so a lot of names topping out at the high of yesterday, leading to that consolidation. Double top to the penny on TLRY, and the hourly uptrend is lost at this point. So we have the high of the day, low of the day. Lower high is 72.87, and the bulls formed a higher low compared to 70.50. If we break 70.50 tomorrow, clearly our daily lower high will be set, and we'll have to form a higher low compared to 64.45 to try and change the trend, as the bears have clear control of TLRY on the bigger picture. OGI, unable to break the high of yesterday, rejected by 3 pennies, just like everybody else, unable to get follow through, leads to pullback, high, low, lower high, and now we're looking for that higher low compared to 812. And that's as simple as it gets. Patiently waiting for the daily higher low to be established, a change of the hourly trend back in favor of the bulls will be the first indication that the daily higher low has been established, and we're going to look for this range to continue to tighten up into next week. TRST, watching for the weekly healthy consolidation to remain. It is still healthy at this point. If we were to drop down and break 1047, I would no longer call that healthy. That would be a red flag. Bulls inside bar here as well, pretty much. Need the higher low and the daily trend change. We just formed a lower high. Have to shift the momentum with the higher low and clear trend change telling us the weekly higher low has been established. If not, 1047 is the must-hold support level. HEXO, news they're buying. HIP, I believe, is the ticker. Bulls obviously responding very well to that. Daily lower highs have broken. So news for ACB and Hexo breaking the setups for those tightening ranges, whereas everybody else maintained in those tightening ranges. So Hexo is now looking at 809, the recent high, and after 809, we're looking up at 929, the all-time high. So Hexo is maintaining the uptrend on the weekly, that weekly higher low formed. The only red flag that we could see here would be a head and shoulders pattern, which means if we reject from 809 and give back the majority of this move, if we reject from 809 and pull back to the low $7 range, that would be a red flag for the head and shoulders pattern. And here it is with the left shoulder, head, and this would be the right shoulder. But obviously the bulls have a lot of momentum in their favor. That's not a likely scenario, but it is something that visually stands out to me. So it's going to be something that I watch for. Hourly higher low is 772 of support. If we lose the hourly uptrend, we zoom out to the daily, and we'll look for a healthy daily higher low to form because the last one was all the way down at 685. So breaking correlation with other names due to news and standing out as a bull similar to ACB in that way. VFF looking for the daily higher low, declining bear volume. This is ideal consolidation. There's no red flags here. We need the hourly trend change, and we don't have it yet. change the hourly trend, and we will be looking for the daily higher low to be clearly set. 1750 is resistance. If tomorrow morning we pull back and hold 1630 and then turn around and break 1750 by the end of the day, that would be a clear hourly trend change. It is still a potential bull flag on the daily time frame at this point, but there's not enough bounce yet on the hourly, not enough shift yet to be confident that the daily higher low has been established, but certainly worth watching for with this very clear lead bull. I keep forgetting earnings. We got earnings tomorrow, so that's going to dictate whether we see continuation or whether this pullback takes us down towards $14, in my opinion. T-God tightening up like OGI. So nice and simple, high, low, lower high potentially set. If we break 431 and 428, it'll very clearly be set, and we'll then have to hold 402 to form the higher low. So tightening range on watch for T-God. N, also tight, 76 clear support. If we break 76, we're looking down at 68. Bears still have the advantage, and it is a 4-hour tightening pattern, and we're looking for the higher low compared to 68 to form on this current consolidation. CXX, weak bounce, weak follow through, not the kind of follow through you want to see after your bullish reversal candlestick, especially when it's coming after a pullback that is much more sizable than the bulls would have hoped for. So a sizable pullback and a weak bounce is not ideal. Hourly uptrend still intact, but if tomorrow morning we break 155, the odds that this is a daily bear flag will increase, and we'll be looking down at 141, the recent low. We're going to have to see a bull break of 170 to try and negate this weak bounce attempt, which is favoring the bears at this point in the short term. IIPR continuation with market strength to the upside. This is going to be a play to be watching for an equilibrium here as well. If we do slow down, which we haven't done yet, but we're going to be watching for high, low. If we lose the hourly uptrend without a new all-time high of 81.60, here's our hourly uptrend to be watching. But if we lose the hourly uptrend, we're then going to pull back and look for a higher low on the daily, somewhere around the $74, $73 range. And we're going to look for an equilibrium into the end of March for a clear break to be watching. And it's absolutely worth watching, because if this equilibrium that's potentially going to form breaks bull, it's going to be a blue sky breakout. C-Web. So, looked like a fake out this morning, but there's big money behind this. And speaking of big money, why I keep talking about uplisting, I keep saying if you're not uplisted on a major exchange, you're not a real player yet. Any real player is going to be uplisted if they're going to prove themselves for access to capital. Why does that matter? Because you can see ACB seeing $1 billion plus traded, and a big day of volume for C-Web, we're looking at $12 million traded. And ACB does that in a 5-minute candlestick these days. So if big money wants to get involved with C-Web, you just can't do it with this liquidity that we're currently seeing. So nice follow through. The bulls bought the dip in a very big way. So our new key support is 1894, the low of today. But look at this end of the day bull run. And again, it doesn't take a whole lot of volume. Big money can shape these low cap names, and not necessarily low cap, but let's just say thinly traded. Look at the end of the day volume. We had a ton of weakness. We pulled back 7% from the high of the day. And then at the end of the day, someone with, let's see how much roughly volume, 400,000 shares. So we'll call that, let's see, 20 million, 10 million. We'll call that $11, $12 million, completely shaping the daily candlestick and pushing the price up from 1894. $12 million pushes the price 12%. If you put $12 million on the ask at ACB, maybe you'll push it 0.5% with the amount of liquidity that we're currently seeing. So again, it's just a very different trading environment. But the bottom line is there's big money behind C-Web, and it continues to stand out over the last 2 days for its volume for the bulls and for its bull break of resistance on the daily time frame, having us look for the potential of weekly continuation back up towards the all-time high. Hourly higher low of support. Again, we don't have anything except for 1894 nearby, so next time we consolidate on the hourly, we will be looking for another higher low to form. CURA defended the low of the pullback, so it did not confirm the bear flag setup, and we broke resistance. So the bulls need to continue to follow through here for us to negate this potential bear flag, because I would still call it a possibility. And I use the 4 and 8 period exponential moving average for my guides on flags, excuse me, I can see we're still right at these resistances. So another green day, we're going to get over these resistances. But if we were to have a red day tomorrow, then we would be looking at the potential of the bear flag still being in play. It is notable bull volume and big bull volume at the end of the day on the 5-minute time frame. So that stands out. And that shapes. We did see on the U.S. side of things, notably, some bull volume at the end of the day. And it's possible that it has to do with the House passing in Florida. We had the Senate pass for smokable MJ last week, and now we have the House confirming that it's going to happen. That's a big market, and U.S. players exposed. Let's see what TRUL did at the end of the day, which has the biggest exposure. So look at that volume. Last 15 minutes, it is notable. Very significant shift. And in 15 minutes, we see the price run 3%. And it's on dollar volume. We're talking less than $1 million. So TRUL is trying to shift momentum. It's not notable, but I was just curious to see if the end of the day volume did come in as it did on the other USMJ names, and that is the case. Look at that C-Web 5-minute big surge. And that last candlestick there at the end of the day, you can disregard. That shares settling from earlier in the day. We didn't dip down to that price before the close. MedMen, still weak. Daily inside bar. Only supports nearby are 363, 359, 355, 346. Lower highs last 3 days in a row. Tightening range to be watching that's favoring the bears. 4-hour exponential resistance with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rejections. So worth watching that time frame. This is the 12-period exponential moving average. Bears still have the upper hand. The burden of proof to change that is on the bulls. And unless they break 387, they're not changing anything. CVSI earnings reaction was a dump and a bounce. And the bounce was a beautiful bottom fishing play. 433 support. We bounced off 435, and it was a significant bounce. So on this bounce attempt now, we have the low, the high of the bounce, the higher low, and to confirm the hourly trend change, we have to break 485 tomorrow. And then it's going to be like earnings never happened if we can get that bull break. If not, if we pull back and break 461, we're looking back down at that double bottom and the low of the reaction. So the most important range is 461 to 485 and watching to see which of those levels breaks first tomorrow morning. So S&P 500 gave us the same thing. I'll go over that in the SPY video. Gave us the same thing at the end of the day yesterday. Some pullback, some initial signs of consolidation, 3 gap ups in a row. We know we're overextended, but the bulls have been shrugging it off. We have quadruple witching on Friday. Look that up on Google if you're unfamiliar with what it is. But that quadruple witching could be a catalyst and a reason for big money to keep things as bullish as possible so that their positions expire in the most profitable fashion. So, hope you're well. Hope you had a good day. Congrats to the ACB bulls. Congrats to the C-Web bulls. That's where big money is focused, at least the last 2 days. And we'll see if ACB can break 925 first thing tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of your day. Do good things. We'll see you tomorrow. Chapter 8, story time. So we left off from the hot spring, and I actually heard about that hot spring. Like I said, you get these tips from just people in the same kind of traveler lifestyle, and that was from another group that I interacted with. They said, hey, you should check out these hot springs. And from there, I went to those hot springs, and then someone in those hot springs said, hey, you should check out Ice Lake Basin. And I'll point out Ice Lake Basin in one of the next chapters, not this one, but that was a highlight of the trip as well. So it was just this string of consistent recommendations that were on point. So I like this picture a lot. Really cool to be able to see the trail winding the whole way through the fields with the mountains in the background. These are just more spots coming down from Conundrum Hot Springs, and I believe I went to Telluride next, but had to skip my way across and stay in some other spots. And again, when you're in this expanse of a place surrounded by mountains that make you feel minuscule and you are by yourself, it is pretty powerful. Fresh creeks everywhere for fresh water. I drank from all these creeks with my little filter bag that I showed in chapter 1 and never got any kind of sickness, only felt perfect from the water that I was drinking. This spot stood out to me, so I had to take some pictures. This is just some BLM land, Bureau of Land Management. It's publicly owned. You can camp wherever you want off the road. So it's just dirt roads going through national forests or going through other big expanses of land. And they're nice to cut through rather than go on highways. You know, if you want to take the longer scenic route, nice to drive through. Some of the places that I took my little Honda Civic are astounding that I did not get stuck. But literally driving under a mile an hour and just, you know, navigating these big boulders and rocks on these trails, definitely at this age, I probably would not be risking it, but glad that I did because I never had any issues. But this spot specifically, camped here. This is near Vail and Breckenridge in Colorado. And again, just pulling off the road and camping, but ended up, nice little bunny dude, ended up having a lucid dream experience there. Well, partially lucid dream and partially a moose experience. That was my campsite right next to another creek running by. So I tented that night and I was sleeping and I woke up to the sound of something very big sniffing the back of my tent. And I could tell it was very big by the size of the breaths of the sniffing and rustling the back of my tent. So I'm awake and it's behind me. I'm facing the other way. I'm facing the entrance. So I just don't move. You know, I make note of where my bear spray is and where my knife is just in case, but frozen to a degree and trying to, you know, become aware of my surroundings and being alert and then just patiently waiting. And it was a full moon, or not a full moon, but a very bright moon. And slowly around the side of the tent, a giant moose walks in front of me. And then I saw another moose on the other side. And then I ended up seeing another smaller moose as well. And it's interesting to me because moose are fairly solitary animals. So the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, you know, am I dreaming? Because this whole trip I'm going through lucid dreaming experiences and I'm experimenting with it. And, you know, this is a moment for me that was the most eerie, not eerie, that's the wrong word, but it was the longest it took me to determine whether I was dreaming or whether it was reality in my life. And I was literally sitting there, I'm doing reality checks. I'm saying, okay, I'm seeing this. It feels really magical and mystical. I don't exactly know what's going on. And I just was constantly doing these reality checks and pinching myself. And eventually they walked, you know, they came up and they sniffed my fire and they walked on. And I got to a point where I said, all right, I am definitely awake. This definitely is reality. I got to that very clear point in my consciousness. And then there were other animals around too. I don't know if it was deer or what, but there was a whole lot of activity going on. Then in the morning, I went over to the fire pit that had some sand around it. I could not find a hoof print to save my life. And I should have been able to find one in the sense that I saw where the moose went up and he lowered down and he sniffed my fire and then they kept going. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, I didn't have the evidence afterwards, but I know that I reached the conclusion, this is reality, that just happened. And I was awake for a solid hour after that. So it's not like I was, you know, just fading in and out of dreamland. So that will always stand out as a mysterious, mystical encounter that I had with moose. And it was the first encounter with moose on this trip. I encountered another moose in Utah that we'll get to eventually. Had another lucid dreaming experience on this trip, which was a little bit concerning, where I pitched a tent and I slept in it, and it was early in the daytime. I must have gone to sleep at 5 o'clock. It was still light, and I think it was just a nap. But I laid down and I napped, and I had a lucid dream. And I woke up in my tent exactly where I slept, exactly in the environment that I put my tent up in. And I woke up to someone running up to my tent and jumping down. And I forget the word that they said, but it was either danger or lookout or something along those lines. And so I woke up, that happened, and then I woke up after that person did that. So had the reoccurring, wake up in the same exact spot. One of them, I woke up inside a dream and that happened. And then I woke up in reality. And yet again, my senses are completely heightened. And I'm looking around like, all right, is something about to go down? Is that a premonition? And I actually am very surprised at myself because I didn't leave or move or anything. I stayed there almost because I was curious to see, is that a premonition? Is something going to happen? And I was certainly on high alert and I waited it out, but nothing ever happened. But that was probably the most intense or the most fearful or the most on edge that I was on the entire trip. So If you're interested in lucid dreaming, I got an intro to lucid dreaming video on the YouTube channel. A lot of you have already checked that out. And we'll check off where we're going next. I believe Utah. Great spot. See you then.